Okay, number 4.
We are knocking people out of the drawing here. We were down to 13 previously, and the pickings are getting slim. I think we're down to 11.
Yeah.
10.
We're gonna. We'll be okay. We'll get. Somebody will win this thing.
Good.
Number 4. In a fire emergency panic, how many rated stairwells are there required to be found in the floor plan to get people to safety? So this is a big enough building. If we have, it's 40,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet per floor. If you have a reasonably sized building and you've got fully sprinklered, you can sometimes get away with a single stair exit, especially for one floor above grade, that kind of thing. This is a 4-story building, 10,000 square feet per floor. You're going to need 2 stairs. There's really no question. The only question is whether we need actually a 3rd stair. It's not so big that we're going to need a 4th stair. So I can pretty much guarantee you, just from knowing what I generally about how these things go, that it's probably answer B and might possibly be answer C. So if I was in a hurry, if I was running out of time, I'm just answering B because 2 stairs, totally standard. There's only reason it would go more than that is if it was either a lot of people, so therefore like an assembly space or something like that, or a really big square footage footprint, which then when we divided by the 100 square foot per person that we just found a few minutes ago would be, again, a big number of people, or there's just really long distances. But none of those seem likely. It all seems pretty compact, so it's probably B. But let's just sort of convince ourselves. We already went through the exercise of understanding that we have about 400 people in this building via the code occupancy. So let's take a quick look back into our important little element here, the IBC. And if we had a little more time, I'd scroll through it and you'd kind of see all the different headings. But when we come down to 1006.3.1, see minimum number of exits or access to exits per story. So this is talking about not just horizontal exits, but actually when you're going up and down in the stairwells. And it talks about the occupant load. We have 1 to 500 has 2, 501 up to 1,000 has 3, and then 1,000 or more has 4. Well, we're less than 500, we're at 400, so we're doing just fine with that 2 exit scenario. So the answer here, B, 2 exits, two stair exits are required.
Now, Mike, one thing that folks might be thinking is, and I know every time I stare at a code, the amount of sections and things that are in like a code can be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
But can you speak to the idea that once you've practiced this and once you've done this in real practice, like you kind of get used to like, oh, I know to go look for this. I kind of know, and so even though there's like 4,000 sections or whatever it is, there's actually like a bunch of key ones that you kind of get an intuition about where to go.
In fact, one of the things that happens, even though the code is a gazillion pages long, I'm not sure that's technically correct, but it's a gazillion pages long, you'll find that you keep going to the same pages.
Yeah, right.
So the occupancy count, the description of construction, the different relationships of, like if you're doing residential buildings, you go and you look at the occupancy about residential because there's a bunch of key pieces of information there. So out of all those 1,000 pages, you'll spend 90% of your time on 30 of them, something like that. And you actually start to get to know those pages pretty well. The trickiest part is, and I will admit I'm kind of glossing it over a little bit in this context, we have an example coming up, but is that often you have a very straightforward answer and your immediate inclination is to just, oh, that's the answer. But you do actually have to keep looking at the next bunch of information, the exceptions to that rule. Often you'll find it'll say, you need 2 stairs in this situation, but it turns out if you're sprinklered and only 2 stories, you can get away with 1 stair if the distances are less. And suddenly you can get away with one whole less stair, which is a big cost saving. Now, there may be other reasons as architects we want to always have 2 stairs, but you have to be a little careful. The information is actually relatively easy to find, but then you have to make sure there's not sort of hidden little extras that you want to get through. But yeah, once you've done this a few times, once you start moving through it a few times, you'll find that it actually is you're much more knowledgeable about what's in it than it may seem. And then there's going to be a bunch of sections that you never look at that, maybe somebody else doing a very particular kind of project. There's whole pages and pages and pages on airports. Maybe 2 people who are listening here are going to work, on an airport at some point. But so most of this stuff is going to be
shout out to the airport architects.
Yeah, way to go, airport architects. Most of the stuff is going to be stuff you can just sort of zoom right by, and like I say, you'll get used to it. Remember that whenever you're doing a code search, you're always starting with occupancy, and then jumping to construction type, and then jumping to like height and area limitations. How big a floor plate can it be? How tall can it be? That kind of thing. And if you can't make it work, then you've got to go back and revisit the construction type. So you're always starting with those 3 things, one right after another, and going back and forth to make these numbers work. And then you're going to be going a little deeper into the plumbing and a little deeper into the size of the stairs if it's not a public stair, and those kind of secondary and tertiary levels of information.